Hello and welcome to day 24 of Bondcember. Happy Christmas Eve. Christmas has
Hello.
come early. I apologise, I will not do that
Uh,
again. My name is Tom.
yeah, I know. I'm Joe.
So, Die Another Day. Yeah, this is the one
Yeah,
that is like, that is supposed to be the nadir of the series. It is supposed to be a fan servicey mess that is sort of like,
yeah,
that goes, hey, we've done 20 of these. This is the 40th anniversary. Let's sort of, make a film that's really, really self-referential. And, oh, but Halle Berry is in it, and Halle Berry can't act, and fuck that.
yeah.
This is a fucking great film.
I didn't catch the last part. What? It's a fucking what film?
It's a fucking great movie.
Oh, okay.
Fuck,
I
fuck that.
was not sure where you were going on this
No,
one. I thought I
no.
was going to be the positive one.
No, we're both gonna be positive.
Okay.
I enjoyed the hell out of this.
Okay.
It's
Okay, I gotcha. I like. You think I would. Like, I get this movie.
yeah.
I can, like, this was when I was first getting paid to be a newspaper critic, and I did write a positive critic review, and unlike my one for The World Is Not Enough, I stand by it. I think this is a good movie. I gave it 3 stars, and it's a mess of a movie, and I'm not gonna.
It's a hot.
I'm not gonna say.
It's a hot.
I'm not gonna say the things that are bad with it are wrong.
No.
Like,
Oh God, no.
every time I go to it, I find something. Well, they could have done this differently, or they could have done it, another way. Like the CG parasailing scene should have been cut outright.
Oh God, yeah.
They did not need that. It's a redundant scene, and
Yeah.
you keep finding things, and it is what they are trying to do. Is they are trying to make a send up to
Everything.
all James Bond
Everything.
at this point.
Everything.
Everything at once.
Simultaneously.
And they have a director, Lee Tamahori, who is trying to innovate the series, and a series that refuses innovation. In fact, will go to things that have already been done and already been popular and rip them off to mixed results.
Yeah.
And they're trying to innovate that, and
Yeah. Lee
it's
Tomahawk
weird.
would then later go on to make Triple X State of the Union. So it was like, I'm not quite sure. This guy has one of the most.
That is its own madhouse of a movie we don't have time for.
No.
But
God.
if I'm going to be pissed off at Lee Tamahori for anything, it's going to be Next.
Yeah.
Which is, it's not even anybody's fault. It's just that the ending of the movie is shit. That is the worst goddamn ending to a movie I have ever seen, and I will stand by it. And you could have not have ruined a movie anymore if you were intentionally trying to sabotage it. But
back to Bond.
Die Another Day.
Die Another Day. So yeah, this is a few things about this film. This is really our big farewell to a couple of the key Bond staples. So John Cleese, goodbye. Samantha Bond, goodbye. Goodbye, Pierce Brosnan. This is your last film. And yet it sort of does something really quite fun. It is a very, very self-referential film.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, this is absolutely, this is what you do if you get to 40 years of a film. You go,
Yeah.
we're doing this. We're fucking doing this.
And it is obviously a certain reaction to The World Is Not Enough, at least the negative critical reaction, because there was a huge box office success, but there was still this thing lingering. Well, we went too dour with it. Let's go the other direction and make this fun big commercial thing. But they went the other way when they were still trying to do this, darker stuff. And it's like everything's a mirror to James Bond. It's like all of the characters are literally main characters, like the villain Gustav Graves and Jinx Johnson are like mirrors of James Bond in different ways. And that's, I think, how they were pitched. I can't be sure, but that's how it feels in this movie.
Oh, definitely. It feels The best thing I can say about this is it feels like, you know, every single Bond sort of concept going on at once.
And the problem is why it's easy to make a film brain video on it. Why it's
Oh,
easy
God, yeah.
to like diss this movie is because it is falling on the more side of things when it comes to how it feels and how it's toned, because
Yeah.
it is bright. It has a lot of big silly things in it, and
And it is
it
campy
is.
it's camp as hell, let's be honest. It is.
And even Roger Moore didn't like it. Like, this
Yeah.
is Pierce Brosnan's least like one he was in. They had a big film debut with, they invited all the Bonds. I don't know what Timothy Dalton thought. Sean Connery didn't go to it because he claimed he was making The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, and he might have
Jesus.
done so, and he might have not. But I'm not sure which would be a more unpleasant time for him,
Jesus.
because Sean Connery obviously has an ego, and he obviously has an idea of how things what he wants to go.
Yeah.
Like, he fought with the director on The Man Who Would Be King, and, you know, and obviously he does not want to see director Stephen Norrington, who made The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, ever again. Otherwise, he will probably fucking murder him. So I do not know which would be more unpleasant. Him watching Die Another Day, or
Him stuck on
what he
the
actually
stage
did was
working,
stop
trying to
working
work
The
out
League of Extraordinary
whatever the hell
Gentlemen.
he's doing. And yet, and yet, and yet, and yet,
And yet,
and yet, and yet, this is a fun film. Like, I genuinely think Graves is one of the best modern Bond villains, and it's sort of really nice to sort of have a villain who really, after, like, you know, the problem is with the Bond villains that we've had, you know, in the Brosnan era, and certainly in the Bond villains that we had in the Dalton era, is they've been a little bit po-faced.
yeah.
You know, yeah, absolutely, you know, Janus is having fun being a villain, but it's all very much, you know, very personal, very revenge. Toby Stevens is having a whale of a time.
Oh, yes.
Because he is absolutely, he this is like, you know, this is back to the great scenery chewing performances of Bond villains. And we really haven't had a Bond villain like this since, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
We need to talk about
very
the plot.
fun. And then, yeah, getting to the plot, it's just, they try to do a lot of interesting things. Like, I mean, that probably are less interesting in retrospect, but they start, you know, the sequence where the barrel of the gun where James Bond is walking through and he fires, and then the bullet actually goes through the barrel. And that nobody's ever done that. And it's just like, okay, they did that, cool. And then they have this sequence in North Korea where we have a father and son who are in the military. We have Colonel Moon and General Moon.
Yeah.
And then we Will Yun Lee, who is this North Korean person who has trained in the West, and like he trained in Western hypocrisy is what he essentially said. But he still likes the he still gets the nice cars and the big weapons, and he's trying to do this big arms deal without his father noticing. But that's where James Bond comes in and, you know, messes it up. But in the act, and a pretty rad hovercraft sequence, James at least thinks he kills Colonel Moon, who is the son, and then he gets captured by General Moon, who then proceeds to spend the next, you know, months of his life torturing him. And that leads into Die Another Day, where it's the opening has like what's going on in the plot while the opening song is going on. So we have James Bond getting tortured in it
to Madonna,
and it's just like, it's another thing I should hate about this movie, but I don't. I mean, I think the opening theme is fine. It was I think the thing that doesn't work about it is it's Madonna during an era where she thought she was being, you know, so, you know, interesting and doing the spiritual stuff, this political stuff, and she thought she was saying way more than she was. And that is the problem. I like it was attached to This American Life.
Yeah, which is an interesting mess of an album.
Yeah, but it was trying to do something where music, I think, was trying to be, music was trying to be a dance album, and if it stayed trying to be a dance, then that's fine. And like, there's a dance mix of Die Another Day in the movie, but
and
then
Madonna
it's trying to do
Madonna obviously later
Sigmund
cameos.
Yeah, which is fine. It's a lot. She does a lot better than Goldie.
Oh God,
I'll tell you that much.
Mostly because Madonna has actually acted before, and has fairly decent acting chops. To be fair,
to a certain extent, you have to get Madonna in the right role,
and this is definitely the right role for her. She
is a fencing instructor, and she is trying to play this tough authority fencing trainer while they have a relationship with Bond that's kind of sexual, and she can kind of do both, and she's only in the movie for about a minute or two. So, she doesn't have a chance to once we get to the deaths of the character, find that there's no depths there, but she does, it plays to her talents, and she does it well. That's it.
Oh, absolutely.
And then she leaves.
Yeah.
So, but, the opening thing is when she does Sigmund Freud, analyze this, and it's eye rolling. But other than that, it's fine. The only problem is Madonna is trying to do too much, and maybe the film is trying to do too much. But that falls into also after James Bond's been in prison, he gets traded out for this terrorist who has been running about, that
Zhao, who is a fun villain. I mean, Rick June, who I heard, Mr. Apologies, Mr. Yoon, I have probably murdered your name, but there we go. Yeah, he's a great villain, and he gets this very visually striking thing where basically the opening sequence, Bond is trading blood diamonds from a conflict zone with it, and Zhao gets this sort of embedded in his face.
Yeah,
and it looks really quite dramatic and suitably. It's a sort of a typical thing I can imagine. A Bond villain having some sort of interesting thing going on with their face.
Yeah. Later they try to do this gene therapy. I mean, we'll get there on his face. I'm wondering why they didn't take the diamonds out before doing the gene therapy, but that's a question for the people who do
the gene therapy.
Bad movie beatdown.
No, I like them. They're pretty. They make me look pretty. Don't take my diamonds. Although if you won't take out the diamonds, you probably can pay for this entire thing right now.
Yeah, it's James Bond gets traded for
Zhao,
and they get to, and then they feel like there's somebody on the inside hemorrhaging information, and they think it's Bond, so they disavow him. So I think they do this a lot better than they do in License to Kill, where they make him an agent, where he doesn't have the support of his people, or at least for a while, because in License to Kill, it felt like it was an 80s cop movie. Turn in your badge and your gun, and you have to do it on your own, and it's personal now. And here it feels like it's more of a Bond movie, where it's like, we have to abandon you because you are possibly compromised, and you might not even remember being compromised. I think that would have been, and I think it's where they drop a lot of the interesting things, because there's obviously post-traumatic stress with being tortured for 8 months, and then there's the possibility that James Bond might have accidentally done something, but that's never explored, because it's like
and then
James
he escapes.
Bond, he escapes by faking his death, and then
pretty much
shocking the male doctors, and then saying, after they gave him mouth to mouth, "Thank you for the breath of wife," to the female, and they're like, "Oh, I should be I want to hit the alarm and say this dangerous person has escaped, but I'm attracted to him."
Yes. And now watch as he jumps off into Hong Kong Harbour and manages to book into a hotel.
Yeah. Which, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, it is silly as hell, but the way they play it off is great. I mean, it's very weird to have this comedic scene after he's been tortured for 8 months, he's been disavowed, and all of this. it tonal. And I know we're saying this like right after The World Is Not Enough. We're saying it's a total mess. This is a mess, but it is a fun mess.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Like,
And the problem is, it's, you know, I feel that this with a lot of the Bond films, it's so much better to watch a fun, you know, chaotic mess. Because we some of the films we have reviewed have been, you know, these amazing chaotic messes of films.
Like Moonraker is the ultimate version of this.
Oh,
it doesn't quite get there with this one, but you know, and I enjoy watching it. Like, even if I find something like, oh, that's really crap,
whereas,
or that doesn't work at all.
Yeah. Whereas some of the Bond films, that.
Yeah. Whereas Die Another Day, it's just like, do I have to watch this? Or not Die Another Day, but The World Is Not Enough. Do I have to watch this?
Because it's so po-faced, it's so glum, and it's like, no, you should be having fun with this. You have helicopters with chainsaws.
Yeah.
And it does, and it's like, you know, this film is fan servicey as fuck. It's like, basically, Bond then goes to a hotel, and this is sort of a little interesting nugget. This was meant to be Michelle Yeoh, and it's fairly obvious it's meant to be Michelle Yeoh, but you get, you know, a bit part who's Mr. Chang, who is, you know, the most obvious Secret Service agent who ever Secret Serviced.
Yeah.
And he then tries to honey trap Bond with a Chinese agent called, and I had to Wikipedia this because this is their actual name, Peaceful Fountains of Desire. And it's like, you know, it's like, guys, are we even trying?
No.
No, we're not. That's fine. Okay, on we go. So anyway, Bond then escapes. Bond then books into a hotel. Bond finally gets a shave and goes back to London, and obviously gets in via the basic, what I can only assume is the MI6 service entrance, which happens to be underground and part of a tube station. John Cleese then leads us through a hey, look, stuff from another Bond film sequence, including where we see a couple of very iconic Bond sort of objects.
Yeah, the plane from Octopussy, the rocket pack from Thunderball, the Rosa Kleb's knife from Russia with Love, which I don't know why they kept it or why they got it.
So how did we get this?
I don't know.
Bond, hey, look at these shoes, they have knives on them.
We're gonna keep this for later.
And during the sequence, we are introduced to Gustav Graves, who is.
Oh, you gotta wait for a second, because you gotta introduce the thing any internet critic has to bring up: the invisible car. Oh my God, it has an invisible car. Did you see the invisible car? It has an invisible car. That movie is invalid.
But it's fun, this is the thing. It's a fun movie. It's allowed.
Yeah,
it's this thing I get with a lot of cinema. You do realise, and I feel it's something that sort of, obviously we will come to talk about in the Craig era, which is very much, a grounded set of films.
Yeah.
Bond is not the real world. Bond has never pretended to be the real world. Bond is a caricaturish in place, and at some points incredibly caricaturish world of sort of secret agents and espionage and cars that can go underwater, and people with unfortunately sort of double innuendo names. It's never been reality. It's the same thing with a lot of comic book movies. You do realise this is meant to be entertaining and fun and colourful.
Yeah.
And sort of, this is based on stuff for kids. Please stop making everything gloomy and dark and monotone and depressing, and having, various reasonably good actors sort of growl their lines until, one of them punches the other one to death. Please stop that. It's annoying. You're allowed to have fun in films. This is a fun film.
Yeah. And unfortunately, it was made in a time when, fun movies it was not in vogue.
No.
The Bourne movies were in vogue. There's another movie I'm going to bring up at the time that was really trashed for not being in vogue, and let's just move on. It's like Atlantis, The Lost Empire.
Oh, God, yeah.
This was when, to its credit, Pixar was hitting its stride and it was getting hit after hit, and it was hit, and it was like it was doing things old Disney movies, and then they just made Atlantis: The Lost Empire, which is a throwback to like Indiana Jones action movies, and all of this stuff, and everybody was like, we're done with this. We don't want this anymore. We don't want hand-drawn animation. We want these Pixar movies. We want Shrek. We want, all of these things. And it sounds silly to say, but they just rejected it because Atlantis Lost Empire, because it was out of vogue.
And Treasure Planet, which is also, I think a year or so earlier or later.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And it was just like they were done with this because it was out of style.
Yeah.
That's why they were mostly done with this movie. And that's why I feel Die Another Day, because this is after 9/11. So it's just like we are doing this Bourne introspective, but he can still, have, awesome action sequences. And I like the other the latter two Bourne movies, but they're... James Bond isn't Bourne, and they try to integrate it into certain success, and we'll get there. But this
ain't it. This isn't it.
Especially like Brosnan, and especially with what the characters they have. If you tried to make it this, it would just be the world is not enough again. Yeah. And I think they understood that to a certain extent, and they made it this movie where the main Bond girl, Halle Berry's Jinx, is exactly Bond except female.
Yeah.
And
just as capable, which is really refreshing.
And it's fun. And, there's a certain part to Halle Berry's where she is, playing this, I'm this bad girl, even though there's, once you scrape behind the layers, it's Halle Berry, no.
No,
but
absolutely not.
It is not Catwoman.
No,
it is absolutely not
absolutely.
Catwoman.
And obviously that fan service does even come to the sort of this positive recreation of the famous Ursula Andress appearing out of the waves in and it's like it is very self-aware, and it's sort of gloriously self-aware, because it's like you got bit part things, you got sort of little throwaway sort of references to other, and it's fun. It's fun. Yeah. You got to remember, this is also
they're having fun.
Yeah, this is also the most successful Bond film up until Casino Royale. This makes nearly $500 million. This is fun. We are allowed to have fun in the Bond universe.
Yeah.
The Bond universe is, for at this point, and even now, is over 1/4 campy silliness with people with silly names.
And even the ones that people were like, oh, Connery was so serious, and it had this literary thing. It's just like
you do realize
still had people named Pussy galore.
Yeah.
And you still had Goldfinger like showing his evil plan to people he was going to fucking kill anyway.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That's the thing. I feel that sort of and I think, obviously, as we come on to the Craig films are great, but the Craig films have lost, and I feel that sort of this is part of a bigger trend in sort of cinema, and particularly in cinema of these big long running franchises, with the possible exception of the workmanlike but solid Marvel universe, where a lot of these big long running franchises are sort of going, you're looking at them and going, you realise you're basically based upon whether it be comic books, fantasy films, even bloody Star Wars, you do realise you are entertainment primarily for children and young adults. You are based upon novels, pulpy, in the case of Bond, you are based upon pulpy novels, to entertain, And I feel like Die Another Day is the sort of the last stand of, at least currently, of, that sort of campy side of Bond, the fact that Bond is this hyper reality where, people have silly names and there's cool gadgets and, evil organisations full of people who stroke white cats.
Yeah. it's interesting to see where it's going to go
Mm.
after 2020
Yeah.
and No Time to Die.
Yeah, absolutely.
Uh,
2021.
I'm sure. I'm wondering if the world has this serious relapse back into campy after 2020.
Mm.
There, whether it's deserved or not, whether we're just going to sweep what's wrong with the world under the rug again, and it's just going to explode in another 10 years or what. But if there's going to be this reaction where it goes back to bright, where it goes back to campy after whatever the world is burning down right now is done. I don't know when that's going to be, but it feels like after this, we are at an era. This was Die Another Day is like something that was in another era after 9/11, and it feels like the last gasp. It's like the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie Collateral Damage that was released after 9/11 but was made before. So this kind of entertainment, and that died, and then we had to replace it with the Daniel Craig, and Daniel Craig has just been going through the post 9/11 world, and now we are at the breaking point of everything wrought by 9/11 in 2020 and
beyond
otherwise. And it's just like, what's next? And I'm wondering if it's going to take that direction back. But
we will see. I mean, this is the thing. We're sort of talking about a series that has always, to an extent or another, reflected the world around it. And, will a more optimistic world, with a world, where basically, for the past, XYZ number of months, we've all been stuck indoors. Cinema is supposedly dead. The very idea of going to the cinema to see a James Bond film now feels like some sort of, bygone era. I mean, to see any sort of film, we are talking in a week that has seen essentially No Time to Die's delay kill one of the big UK cinema chains, and God knows by the time this goes out on Christmas Eve, God knows where we're going to be, sort of, economically and socially. I mean,
I don't think the war with Grandpa is going to save cinema.
No.
No.
And that's the thing, this is, and I feel we sort of have to get back to the plot now, because this is like, it's escapist.
Like we've been going outside. It's escapist, and we haven't even gotten to a lot of the set pieces and all of that. And I'm sorry, I derailed us.
No, absolutely. No, I feel we need to talk.
It's an important thing. I think
absolutely.
we
need to talk about the tone of this film, because the tone of this film, and the way that the Craig, that obviously from Casino Royale, the way that Bond pivots back to a very grounded series from this silly escapist action movie. So anyway,
there's a lot of it, and there are parts of it that try to be serious. Like there is the thing with Colonel Moon and General Moon, the father and son, where they surprise Gustav Graves is Colonel Moon, and he has made himself into the opposite of James Bond, as like this mocking this face to mock the person who quote unquote killed him, and all the terrible things Western, and it's like, it's interesting because I see I think it's like Branson. I think it's modeled on like the guy who owns Virgin and all that,
Richard
who's
Branson,
like the stunt Richard Branson,
Yeah.
and eventually Elon Musk. He has that feeling of like the Western billionaire who is the thrill seeker and what is always bleeding edge in everything, who is actually a massive douchebag, and all of that stuff. And I think that's and Toby Stevens plays that well. And
absolutely.
It's to mock the West and then destroy it, because he has this plan to take all of his technology and create this, diamonds are forever, fuck off space laser.
Because why not? I mean, it's
because
why? I mean, if you're going to do it, why not do it with the big fuck off space laser? The thing I will say about this is, and this is my personal opinion, because I think he is very good in the sequence we do get him in. Will Young Lee, who plays obviously Moon before he becomes Graves, is a great actor, and I really wish we got a little bit more of him in it. Because he does he does very much play this sort of slightly unhinged sort of
villain.
Villain, and it's fun, and he is
It's great. Like, we are introduced to the character. He is doing kickboxing practice, and then he unzips the bag, and it's a guy, and then that's supposed to be the punchline, but that's not the end of the punchline. It's like, get me a new anger therapist. Yeah, and just like that scene keeps going, and we're introduced to this guy who is very clear. And then we get that in Toby Stevens' Gustav Graves to a certain extent, who is
gleefully nuts.
Gleefully nuts, because they're introduced in the fencing scene, which is infamous for like going way over the top. Like, this is, if you are enjoying the movie, this is a great. And as a person with fencing training, at least the fencing does work for a certain amount. But the thing is, as an épée fencer, and that's the discipline they're doing, even though they are wearing the wrong lames and all of that stuff, but they do the fencing very well. But the thing is, épée fencing is really fucking boring to watch. Yeah, and I say this as a person who has fencing medals.
Yeah, and then it sort of escalates into this sort of full-on broadsword fight.
Then they start with sabers, and then they do a decent saber. Although it is stage saber fencing, because all saber matches last under 30 seconds. Like, you are either right or you're wrong with saber fencing. There is no like clanging. No, and then they go do straight like broadswords and all of these other, and it just goes straight to theatrical sword fighting, where you're just clanging against each other. Although, to the credit to the staging, they are at least feels like they are trying to kill each other. If I may say something bad about Highlander and some of the sword fights, it is people who are literally waving their swords to clang against their other swords.
Not rather than clanging against flesh and blood.
That is a movie from the 80s where they didn't have everything all sorted, and I am willing to forgive it. Highlander is fine. It is just like the sword fighting as a person who has been trained with swords. It is not, these people are not trying to kill each other. They are trying to give you they are trying to give you a show. And at least with Die Another Day, I get the feeling these people are trying to hurt each other. At least, do some damage to each other. And like the clanging the swords against each other is so they can hurt their hands, because if you throw a sword against each other, it reverberates off of you and it hurts. And that's what their broadsword fighting was trying to do. And so I can say that it is absolutely ridiculous, over the top James Bond sword fighting, but for what they are doing and for what their purpose are, it works.
Oh,
I'm
definitely.
saying this as a person who has some basic fencing and some basic sword training. Yeah. So it is like, it's a movie, guys. It's a movie.
Yeah. Anyway, it's off to Iceland, because guess what? There's something about Graves, and Graves has a big fuck-off space laser, which focuses...
And he has a big fuck-off diamond mine in Iceland, which does not look like Iceland at all.
Despite being shot in Iceland. Not quite sure how you did that.
It's very, because they had to figure out how they were going to freeze that lake that they're on, because they have an ice palace, because he has a fuck-off ice palace.
Because of course he does.
But Iceland doesn't get that cold, so they had to dam off the river from the lake they were using, and so it could get enough water to freeze enough.
And then the rest of it was shot in Norway, because...
Yeah. Because Iceland is not how it is portrayed in this movie. And it's like, there were tourists who went to Iceland. It's like, can I see the ice palace? Like, we don't have those. It's like, the Mighty Ducks, the second Mighty Ducks movie got this right. Iceland is nice.
It's a nice land.
But, I mean, I know. That's another over-exaggeration, but it's just like, Iceland is a relatively temperate country as far as these things go. But anyway, he has a fuck-off ice palace with a fuck-off diamond mine where he introduces his fuck-off space laser.
Yes. Oh, but wait. Guess what? Here's, So, this is sort of very, very fun. And, what's that? Colonel Moon's still alive. Oh, dear. And guess what? He's been setting off these blood diamonds. Oh, dear.
And guess what? We haven't talked to her about, that Frost agent that has been, Miranda Frost, who has been following you
Yeah,
around
and it's
and like to
basically,
check up on
yep,
you.
and moonlighting
Who we
is,
haven't talked much about,
yeah,
but she is this new agent who does not trust James
yep,
Bond, and like M's like, oh, I'm going to send you there because you don't trust James
mm-hmm,
Bond, but she has been the insider this whole time. She has been the one feeding Gustav, because for some reason they didn't get that they were on the same. They went to the same fencing school at Harvard, and that's another one of those plot points you get in these movies where everything is connected by the action sequence
mm-hmm,
and everything just has to work because we say it
yeah.
does. But
We haven't really
so that's
talked.
how they
Yeah,
forgot
we haven't really
that
talked
they
about
couldn't
Halle
figure this.
Berry, and Halle Berry is damn good in this. Like,
She's having fun.
she's having fun, and it's like, again, it is very much, and it's fairly obvious. This is, but what if James Bond was a woman?
Yeah. There is a certain veneer to Halle
Hmm.
Berry's performance where she is putting on a show, but she is having a lot more fun
Hmm.
with it, and it definitely has, you know, a lot more entertainment value than say Catwoman, where she
Oh,
is just
miserable.
she is
Miserable.
going into an all she is going all into a character that does not fit.
Hmm. Yeah, no, this definitely fits it. And for all the sort of references to other Bond girls, this is like it's refreshing to see someone who's like, no, I'm your equal, and
Yeah.
oh, by the way, I have this other, completely different mission that I actually need to get on with. So if you'd leave me alone, I can get
Yeah.
on with it.
But although she does get captured in
Yeah.
inordinate amount of times,
Yeah.
which is, another problem you can, for the people who look at the social aspects to Bond, even when they're equal, they're not equal.
Yeah.
I have watched those videos, I understand them, and you are not wrong.
Yeah. But I mean, she is a very. I mean, again, we could say, oh well, how would this work with another? I don't see this working with anyone but Brosnan. There is a lightness to Brosnan that
Yeah.
they work off each other very well, and particularly in the
Mhm.
sort of the final action sequences where you
Yeah.
do get this sort of square off between Bond and Graves, and Frost and Jinx.
Jinx.
It just goes, oh, okay, this actually really works.
Yeah. And,
Yeah, which sort
they
of,
actually have an intense showdown, and it's it eventually is revealed they're using the thing to destroy the demilitarized zones landmines. So they're just going to focus the sun on that, and we have before that we have
the good old ice
an excess
chase.
of chases at the ice palace. So we have like they try to kill Bond by turning the sun on him, and he starts parasailing to get away from the explosion. And then he gets on this ice stuff, and it's just like it's a mess of special effects. And this is the part of the movie I think absolutely does not work, because in the opening there's a surfing scene, and you can go this like James Bond is passe because he's trying to be extreme, like way after the extreme era. It's like it's like this is like 7-8 years after Batman and Robin tried to build an entire movie off of extreme sports and like failed. So James Bond doing this in 2002 is like, it's not great, but it real stunts, and it's like that is a real goddamn giant wave they have there, and it works because I think it works even if they're trying to be cool and failing. But this is Pierce Brosnan muddling through CGI ice in
really obviously CGI ice as well.
Yeah, if it looked bad in 2002, in 2020 it looks jaw-droppingly awful. And I think they could have just excised this scene and just like gotten to a scene where he tries to rescue Jinx, who is locked in the ice palace, while the sun is melting it down, and Toby Stevens, Gustav Grave is extra, and this works with it being extra.
Because hey, why not destroy the demilitarized zone with a massive fuck off sun laser?
Yeah, and then we have Zhao, who is kind of like his man, and they have Mr. Kill, who is a forgettable throwback villain. But it's like Zhao is trying to do the job. I can admire him because like when they capture James Bond and Jinx and they're spying on them, they like Zhao just hands Mr. Kill a gun and it's like, take care of it. And then like Mr. Kill's like, I'm gonna use the lasers, because there's this giant they try to do Goldfinger on steroids, where they try to kill Jinx with the laser, and then it's like just fucking kill her. And then like Mr. Kill's like, I gotta use the laser. I'm gonna have fun doing this because this is.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't work out, and then they have a fight with lasers, which is cool enough, but it is definitely special effects enhanced, and some of them haven't aged well.
It's very much
But
sort of like
nothing to the.
It's where the film is certainly in its most fan stuff. It's like, hey, remember this? Remember this from when we shot a laser at Sean Connery's crotch? Yeah, we're gonna do this, but we're gonna have lots of lasers. What if you?
And then
Mr.
They
Kill
have a really good car chase.
And then Mr. Kill gets killed because hey,
Mr. Kill gets killed.
What if we learned use the gun? What if we not learned? Have we learned not use the laser? Well done, Mr. Kill. We all look forward to seeing you die 3 times in Lord of the Rings. Yeah, so it's played by Lawrence Macaire, who played not only the Uruk-hai leader in Fellowship of the Ring, not only the Orc leader in Return of the King, but also the Witch King in all 3 Lord of the Rings films. This guy dies a lot.
Yeah. But then we have Zhao, who's like, okay, gotta do it myself. So he gets his own Jaguar that has fuck-off missiles and all the stuff James Bond has, because why not?
Yeah.
And then he gets a car chase. I mean, which would have worked a lot better if we hadn't had the parasailing chase with the laser beforehand, because now it just feels redundant and we're recycling stuff. Yeah. I mean, it's a good scene on its own, but this is where it's like, okay, we get to finally use our practical stunts. Let's get Vic Armstrong, second unit director, out there, and
let's destroy some ice palace.
And then the director's like, oh, can we use that in the ice palace? And then like they built the entire ice palace not being able to support cars, and then they had to get steel reinforcements. I don't know how. I think it was like they had to spend weeks putting steel reinforcements, because it's like, then the director's like, why don't we have the car chase in the palace? And it's like, oh shit.
Hello.
It's like, you're the boss, and we have James Bond money.
Yeah, it's like, but also feels like, Lee, did you not see the sequence where we literally menaced him with a massive space laser? It's kind of a little bit boring after.
Yeah, you get the feeling they didn't really like working with Lee Tamahori. I mean, Lee Tamahori is fine. He is doing what he thinks he should do to, innovate. And sometimes that works, sometimes that's not. Sometimes you get like 10 swoop shots in the movie, which are supposed to like bring you into the action. Like you swoop in and then there's a zoom, and this is supposed to increase the intensity. But it's just, eventually it becomes like Zack Snyder's slow motion. It's like, yeah, we saw that trick.
Please stop doing it.
It was fun the first 10 times you were doing it, bud. And I cannot remember the PlayStation 2 game, but there's a PlayStation 2 game that took this visual design where I can't remember if it's a JRPG or if it's some action game that I liked playing, but it uses that swoop and it overuses it. And I'm just like, wow. It might be SSX3. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it sounds like something extreme sports,
where they just do the swoop effect all the time. And I was like, did you get that from Die Another Day? I think you got that, because it is such a thing they do over and over, and it's so extra. But this is a movie that is itself extra, so we're fine.
Yeah, but, I mean, it's fun, and it very much feels it's mindless and it's ridiculous, and yet none of it seems to matter that it's ridiculous and mindless and basically Bond, but Bond. It's almost like Bond on ice in place.
Yeah, it's. I will say the Iceland sequences went on a little too long, but I mean, it has its problems, and I get why people wouldn't like it. It's just my advice for film people and people who want to go into film criticism is, you have got to learn to take a movie as it is. There is obviously a certain thing where you come in and your attitudes are going to be whatever. And that will have an effect too. And you can play that. And obviously, if you're in an attitude of this is not what you want out of your life, that is okay. But it is, you have to also learn coming from the other way, what is the movie trying to do? What does it want to do? And if you can say there are these serious sequences where James Bond gets tortured and, post 9/11 stuff, and that matches, absolutely, sure, that does affect it. Although I don't think the tonal whiplash affects it as much as The World Not Enough, which is grim and dire. And then there's this where James Bond gets out of being tortured, and then he goes into a Chinese, Chinese hotel, and then there's a funny joke scene, which I'm underplaying it. Everybody plays it fine. It's just like it is not absolutes, but you have to learn where things are coming from and what they're trying to do. But if you're a person who absolutely can't take that, then that's cool. But it's a part of, film. Everything is a piece, and there's just where you're coming from is not the only piece to a movie. So that I get that with Die Another Day, and if you're approaching it with knives out, then you're going to get what you want from it.
Absolutely. But
if you want I'm a person who likes hackers. I'm a person who likes the movie Sudden Death, which is the Jean-Claude Van Damme Die Hard at a fucking hockey rink movie where he fights a mascot, a person in a mascot costume who is a terrorist. And we have Powers Booth, just hamming up every single goddamn line he has. And is it a good movie? I don't know. No, maybe it's skillfully made. Maybe it's like having violence in front of the little girl who is Jean-Claude Van Damme's kidnapped daughter is not the best thing, but it's rated R. I'm a goddamn adult. I can take it. But it's like, if you want to find what's wrong with the movie, you will find what's wrong with it. If you want to approach it to having fun with it, you can, and that's Die Another Day.
Yeah. So, we will be taking a one-day break between now and starting Daniel Grave, because tomorrow's Christmas Day. So, go enjoy Christmas. Happy Christmas if you are listening to this very late in the evening. But we will see you on Boxing Day for Daniel Craig and Casino Royale. And
your favorite, Mads Mikkelsen.
And Mads Mikkelsen. See you on the 26th.
Insert Tama's dreamy sigh here.